Captain Watchdog, government waste is out of control and politicians at all levels are turning their back on fiscal responsibility. Special interest groups, sweetheart deals, and voter complacency are the norm. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to gather conservative voters around you and force those in office to stop the rising tide of irresponsible spending. As always, should you be captured during the course of your mission, conservatism will be disavowed and taxes will continue to increase until everyone is working only to pay for a bloated government. Good luck, watchdogs. Your country is counting on you.
That's right. My country is counting on me, and that's why I'm here. Even with my vocal cords tied in a knot, a lesser man would be crying like Obama at a election rally. But no, not I, Captain Watchdog. I'm here to do the work of the people, barking on behalf of the taxpayers each and every day of the week. That's why I'm here. Pretty interesting subject today. You'll want to gather the friends and family, well, the ones that you like. Gather them around the radio. You'll want to hear some of these stories and some of the proposals that are going to be going forward in the Texas legislature this year related to family law. You're not going to want to miss this show today. I'm telling you right now. So sit down around the old Victrola and get ready to listen. Take some notes even before we get into all that, of course. We got to visit with our friends at Village Coin and Pawn. Find out how those metal markets did, you rich Republicans.
I didn't agree with anybody else. I agreed with you.
Well, I just wanted to say it publicly that I think you do a great service to the communities in the Permian Basin.
There has got to be a check and a balance. And if it wasn't for your check, you know...
I spent last night in the arms of a girl in Louisiana. And though I'm out on the highway, my thoughts are still with her. Such a strange combination of a woman and a child. Such a strange situation, stopping every 100 miles, calling Baton Rouge.
620-8700 if you want to be part of the program today. You know, Colonel Watchdog reminded me, I said that all wrong. My throat being sore is actually Bush's. My red are here. So the colonel can contact me at any time. So and I take orders well. See, because I'm a good husband. All right, bringing into the show Tim Lambert. He is the president of the Texas Homeschool Coalition up there in Lubbock, Texas. And Tim, how are you?
I'm great, Jason. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. By the way, I hadn't seen you down in these parts in a while. I don't know what the deal is. Have you not gotten your passport?
Well, I'm afraid to come down there. Afraid I won't be able to get back.
That'll happen. Second lowest unemployment. And Cindy Ortiz in Lubbock. This is a two. Boy. And I want to start with Tim. Former national committee man for the Republican Party of Texas, and so you're well aware of all the politics that goes into really everything. But in the arena of so many people to even get for anything that you want to be working this legislative. The Texas Homeschool Coalition on stuff. Closing up of loopholes for.
This is actually like most states has a grandparents. They've been to get access that is also into what we've seen happen. A mother being because they Jason, the first one we got with was a family of three. This family had been married for that so much. So they got a to keep them away from the family and their grandparent access statute where they wanted access and possession. And the current statute, Jason, says in those kind of situations, the grandparent has to prove that denial of that access or that possession would significantly impair the physical health or emotional well-being of the child. So that's a pretty high standard. But like in most lawsuit abuse, they file one of these cases, get their foot in the door, they do a temporary order, and then they drag the case out until the other side runs out of money. And in this case, after several years of litigation, the couple went to the in-laws and said, we don't have any money. We can't continue this. Tell me, how can we resolve this? And the grandparents said, well, we'll drop our lawsuit if you give us custody of the daughter, and we'll let you keep the two sons.
Oh, my goodness. So they had to offer up one of the kids as a sacrifice. This is ridiculous, Tim. I mean, and family situations are always complicated. But at the end of the day, parental rights has to reign supreme, does it not? I mean, if it's clear that, the parents are fit parents, and I know that's such a broad term, but it's got to be, in my mind, pretty extraordinary. There's got to be some pretty significant evidence that, the child is in harm's way rather than, you just don't like the educational choices that, that the parents are making for their kids. And so you as a, possibly wealthy grandparents, like you said, can take a family that's already struggling because they're trying to raise young kids or whatever, and, have to fight these kind of fights. I mean, just the emotional toll alone has got to be brutal.
Well, it is. And, of course, that's our whole point, is that we believe that parents have a fundamental constitutional right to direct the care, control, and upbringing of their children. And the sad thing, Jason, is we're not talking about abusive or neglectful parents here.
Yeah.
We're talking about fit parents, and some non-parent just disagrees with their position. So Tryon Lewis, right there in Odessa, really helped us in this last session. We drafted a couple of iterations of this bill, and we got it out of committee, but it didn't get it on the floor soon enough. But essentially our bill just says, in these kinds of cases, a judge can't do a temporary order. And in 45 days, the grandparents have to go to court and have a hearing, and they have to prove what the statute says. And if they can't prove that, then we're finished. So we kind of get rid of this. In business, you see this all the time, where one side says, I have more money than you do, and I'm going to bankrupt you to get what I want. Well, Jason, that's all right, I guess, in business, but we're talking about families here.
Yeah, no kidding.
We're talking about children. And so that's what our goal is, and I talked to Tryon today. I'm hoping that he will maybe carry that legislation for us. He'll be talking to us about that. But we need to fix this. This is, children and parents deserve to have protection that protects the family.
Well, and as a former district judge, he has, great knowledge of these kind of cases. Now, did he sound receptive to giving it another go this legislative session?
We're going to talk in mid-November.
Okay.
He did sound receptive. I hope he'll do that. He's well respected in the legislature, and we did change our bill significantly to address some of his issues. So we just want to get this fixed, and I'm hoping that he'll help us.
All right. So the crux of the bill is the grandparents say we don't like what's going on. They file whatever it is they filed. Then there's a hearing within 45 days. Is that what you said?
That's correct. So they can still file under the grandparent access statute, but we can't do temporary orders to drag this thing out. You have a hearing in 45 days, and they have to prove what the current statute says, that denial of this access or possession would significantly impair the physical health or emotional well-being of the children.
Now, in legal speak, and I know you're not a lawyer, but that seems fraught with a lot of loopholes. Is it to you, or in legal terms, is that pretty tight? That
well, Jason, that's a high standard.
Okay.
And so what the legislators are trying to do is they're trying to find that elusive middle ground.
Yeah.
Where they give the grandparents who had a child die or their child is divorced had to have access to the grandparents. So I think the language was significant there. The problem is that it's been abused, and that's what we're trying to do is close this loophole.
Yeah.
And frankly, the other problem we have, Jason, is sometimes we just have bad judges.
Yeah.
We've got judges who are, just need to be replaced, and so through our PAC, we're trying to replace some of those judges. But that's I think that would close the loophole that gives somebody an opportunity to come in and say, we're going to file this lawsuit, and then we're just going to drag this thing out till you run out of money.
Yeah. Now, so let me ask you this, Tim. What can people do who, because I guarantee you, I know of people already that this applies to. I know them personally. And one of the reasons we have Cindy on is this is also kind of a parallel story of what she had. There's some other issues at stake in her story. But what can people do if they're interested in seeing legislation like this passed in the legislature? What can they do starting now?
Well, Jason, what they can do is they can talk to the legislative candidates who are running for office, and they can say, we want you to support the Texas Parental Rights Restoration Act. They can go to my blog at thscpac.org and read our different postings on that. We've got links to the bill that we had in the last session, and we're right now trying to get legislative candidates to agree to support that measure. And Jason, this probably won't surprise you, but our huge opposition in the last session was the Family Law Foundation.
No, well, of course.
Yeah, they're fighting us tooth and nail.
Yeah, they're looking for more sacrificial lamb children to offer up to some of this insanity. All right, so that's THSC. That stands for Texas Homeschool Coalition. I guess THSC PAC, PAC.
That's correct.
.org. Okay, .org. So thscpac.org. So go check it out over there. Now let's bring in Cindy here. Now, Cindy, why don't you tell people kind of a quick overview of what went on in your world?
Okay. You want me to do that, or you're going to do that?
No, you go ahead and do it.
All right. Basically, in my world, I have two boys. One is 16 and one is 12. My oldest son began to have some behavioral issues that concerned me, where he was getting in trouble and blowing off his homework, being gone when I didn't know where he was for several hours.
So being a 16-year-old boy.
Correct. Yes.
I have one of those.
Yes. Now, he was 14 at the time, and so it just so happens that my parents run a program. It's a faith-based program in New Mexico that helps troubled teens. They've got a facility in Albuquerque and one up in northern New Mexico. So I contacted them. This is what they've done for 30 years, is help troubled teens get back on track, and asked them to assist me in getting my son some help. And of course, I sat my son down several times and said, listen, I'm scared to death you're going to ruin your life. You've got to turn the corner here, or I'm going to have to pull you away from the temptations you seem unable to say no to. Because I really think that your future's at stake right here, and I need to do something to help you. And you're not listening to me. So if you're not listening to me, I'm going to have to do something drastic to get your attention so that you will get back on track, get yourself going the right way. So
let me ask you this. Actually, let me stop you here for a second. Tim, does this sound like a crazy, out-of-control mother to you?
No, and in fact, I was going to say Cindy's a single mom.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of the scenario that we see here. We got a single parent who's struggling, as a lot of single parents do, with their teenagers, and looking for some help to try to deal with those situations.
Yeah. So carry on.
Okay. So I contacted my parents and said, I need your help. And I believe that in a faith-based organization that indicates that you're going to represent biblical values, Christian values, which strongly supports family working together to help kids stay where they're supposed to be, in school, socially, morally, mentally, physically, all of that. So I reached out to two people who are licensed ministers. They represent themselves to be Christians and people who support biblical views, and asked them to help me with my son, people I trusted. And as it turns out, they never put him in the program, and when I started asking for him to come home, they filed emergency custody and got it. They got emergency custody, and then there were hearings. We had a series of 4 hearings, at which time I went into...
Now, let me ask you this. All these hearings were in New Mexico, though, correct?
They were. They were in New Mexico. Now, jurisdictionally, Judge Reuben Reyes of Lubbock, had jurisdiction over my son, over my case, because my son is a resident of Lubbock. I had an enforceable child custody order from his court already in place, and there's a federal law called the Uniform Child Custody Jurisdiction and Enforcement Act that gave Judge Reyes jurisdiction. The court in New Mexico offered to have a joint hearing first to establish which court has jurisdiction. So I could appear in Lubbock in Judge Reyes' courtroom. My parents could appear in the Albuquerque courtroom, and Judge Reyes declined and simply gave jurisdiction over to this New Mexico judge with a phone call.
Wow. All right, so let me stop you here again. Tim, do you know this judge up in Lubbock?
I do. He's a Republican judge, claims to be a conservative, good Christian guy. But, Jason, what I'm seeing is that there are a lot of judges, there are a lot of people who don't understand and sometimes don't even support the concept of the parents having a fundamental right to direct the education and upbringing of their children. And they, for some reason, they think it's okay for judges or somebody to sit down and just say, okay, I'm gonna overrule you on this, and we're going to do something else.
Yeah, the all-knowing orbs. So breakdown number 1 is, in my mind, it seems like this judge in Lubbock was rather flippant about his duties of, jurisdiction. I mean, that takes in several issues right there. And it also brings to mind, in Texas we elect judges. This seems like something now that needs those of us who are involved politically. Even me, when I start getting to these judicial races, I'm going, oh man, it's like I'm not a lawyer. I don't talk this language. It's hard for me to connect with these people and figure out is this guy giving me lawyer doublespeak when I ask him questions, and so people start glazing over when it gets to judicial candidates. But this reminds me that this is a good issue, maybe to bring up to judicial candidates of where they stand on parental rights in the future. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. In fact, our PAC has developed a judicial candidate questionnaire with the help of some appellate judges so that these guys can fill this out. And so we are asking judges to fill those out. In fact, Jason, we're the only statewide organization that I know of that are endorsing judicial candidates in local races.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we're doing that because these are the guys we're having trouble with.
Yeah.
So our point is we want to vet these guys, and then we're looking at these cases. And, we just endorsed a Democratic challenger for a Republican judge down in Milam County because this Republican he just doesn't get it.
Yeah. Well, and these guys are going to have to get on board with the Constitution. I mean, come on.
Absolutely.
Well, good. I'm glad to know that. So another great reason for you to go to the THSCPAC.org. That's Texas Homeschool Coalition is what those initials stand for. THSCPAC.org. And check out all the good stuff. In fact, I got the website pulled up in front of me. Okay, Cindy, continue with your story because you sent me a link to a story that Fox News did. And the story is incredible, but when I go back and I reread the story, you just see this breakdown at this level, and then that breakdown is perpetuated to the next breakdown, and you have this, as they call it, a series of unfortunate events to where you have utter chaos when you get to the end because no one along the way took the time to not be lazy and say, wait a second, I need to check this out. So we have our breakdown number one, I think, judicial laziness. So now you're in a hearing in New Mexico. Control that. We got about 60 seconds to a hard break here, so go ahead and get us to the next breakdown.
Yes, the next breakdown in New Mexico ended up with a judge who'd already received part of the family court problem.
Oh, great.
And the thing is you're more likely to end up in family court. A person really needs to pay attention to family court judges. You're more likely to end up in family court than you ever probably would, hopefully, criminal court. Because, yes, unfortunately, you do have deaths, you do have divorces, you do have situations where there's going to be grandparents wanting to overstep their bounds and take control of children when they find or see a vulnerability, where there's a single parent due to a death or controlling parents who want in front of a family court judge when you never anticipated anything.
There's more of this story right after this.
You lost your fight, but you right. What you're made of.
This should be live. Don't ever give up. And we sort of have a story related to that. A couple of stories. Well, one particular story, and then thank goodness, Tim, you're doing what you're doing legislatively because we just got to keep pounding away at that. Again, joining me, if you're just joining the show, Tim Lambert of Texas Homeschool Coalition. He's the Grand Poobah. Well, his official title is president. I call him the Grand Poobah of Texas Homeschool Coalition. You've been there a pretty good while.
A little over 20 years.
I'm sure you founded it. Were you one of the founders?
No.
You weren't?
No.
How about that?
I just came in after the fact and picked up the pieces.
Okay. And then Cindy Ortiz joins us. She's like me, she's a good friend of mine, political activist up there in Lubbock, a rabble-rouser like I. And but she's run afoul of the family court system, if you will, and even worse. And here's the thing. I don't even like driving in New Mexico, so I couldn't imagine being in court in New Mexico. But we left off her story. She sent her kids to her parents who run a faith-based teen organization there for challenged teens, shall we say, in New Mexico. And they just decided they weren't going to send her child back to her and filed an order and basically got this judge in New Mexico to grant the order. So where'd it go from there? How long has this been since basically your parents were given custody of your son?
The original temporary custody was granted, I believe, on October 9th. See, in the original temporary custody, the parents don't even get to appear in front of the judge. We didn't even know when there was a hearing or that there was a hearing. So in emergency custody situations, the parents are left out of the loop completely and not able to talk to your child.
Emergency. I mean, what was the
sign an affidavit. Ridiculous this was. But not considered 114 pounds for 6 foot something kids flag.
Mm-hmm.
So
admit something here, Cindy. Little
not physically.
Well,
you could put in a coma if he was my point for their original series of 4 hearings that went from at which time to be careless and lazy with my over to Mexico, who had already been on Fox News as being part of the court problem.
Either one of you in Lubbock intervened as he might this have turned out differently?
Well, I think, Jason, if a judge was doing his job, he would have said, so what is the evidence of the emergency?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what evidence are you showing? You show an affidavit that the child says he's afraid or scared of his mother. Then, a judge would say, well, let me talk to this child.
Mm-hmm.
So just a vetting of the evidence. And I think that's generally the problem we see is that teenagers are grandparent aged and they're too willing to accept these allegations without actually looking at the evidence to support those.
And isn't there, I think everybody understands the tightrope between, a kid that ends up, as we saw in the last couple of weeks, a mom gluing her 2-year-old's hands to the wall so she can, beat on her or whatever. So, people are afraid of finding out that this, a kid was actually in danger and nobody did anything about it. So I guess you have the two ends of the rainbow, if you will, of should someone have intervened versus, these specious, they're afraid. Well, what does that mean? Afraid they're going to get grounded from Xbox? Afraid that they're not going to get to go, goof off and do everything they want to do? Like you said, explore this a little deeper than he's afraid. What is he afraid of exactly? And then, like Cindy's pointed out, here this young man has already is taller and bigger than her, so physically he couldn't really have been afraid, could he? Come on. So how do you balance that? How should a court balance that? Just through a lot of interviews with the friends of the people, or what?
Well, Jason, I think a judge is supposed to have discernment. Is supposed to look at the facts and discern what the facts are based on the evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And in too many of these cases, like in Cindy's case, you look at this and you go, how could a judge reach this conclusion? And, the case we're involved in and down in Milam County, you come to the conclusion this guy must have a bias. He must have a bias in favor of the people that are on the other side.
Doing it emotionally. They're making emotional decisions is what you're saying.
In some situations, they are.
Yeah.
Now we've got a situation down in Milam County where the grandparents are being represented by the judge's former law partners.
Oh boy.
And so again, I don't have I know a judge has a hard job, but their job is to work hard at ascertaining what the facts are based on the evidence and doing what the law requires when you conclude those things. And certainly we want to protect children. Nobody's saying we ought to leave children in situations that are dangerous. But the opposite extreme of taking children from fit parents is just as bad.
That's just as bad. Yeah, exactly. So Cindy, so you've gone to numerous hearings in New Mexico, and now an interesting development in all of this, the supposedly far superior caretakers, your parents, have now run afoul of some trouble themselves.
They have. But if you don't mind, I want to back up just a second. The Supreme Court has already ruled in situations with grandparent and parent rights. In a case of Troxel versus Granville, They came in and said that a parent has the fundamental right to make decisions concerning the care, custody, and control of their children, and that a state may not interfere unless harm can be proven. And the burden of proof would have been on my parents, should have been on my parents. It also clearly states that due process has a substantive component in protecting those rights. And I can tell you, in the courtroom in New Mexico, in Judge Walker's courtroom, I almost was imprisoned twice for complaining that she wouldn't listen to me and that she was denying me due process. And her response at one of those moments was, "You've gotten all the due process out of this court you're going to get." And that was after a 30-minute hearing in which she spent 30 minutes lecturing me and not listening to the facts of the case.
Where do these judges get off being so arrogant?
I don't know.
I mean, so many of them, it just seems like they're on the golf course or doing, a lot of other things other than being a judge. It seems like they can't be bothered to really be doing the judicial work, and I think people are getting kind of aggravated with that. And so she didn't really listen to what how can they just blow past a Supreme Court decision?
I don't know, but I'll tell you what, when I cited that Supreme Court ruling and read parts of it to her, I thought she was going to come out of her bench and choke me. It was very clear, very visually obvious that it made her angry, and she didn't want to hear it.
Did she say anything like, "This is New Mexico, we don't care about the Constitution"?
She said nothing. Absolutely. There was no response. It was kind of like, well, in my courtroom, here's the deal.
Yeah, my courtroom, screw the Constitution.
Correct.
And the Supreme Court.
Well, and secondly, the courts in these situations order a court-appointed attorney to represent the child. This person is supposed to be a neutral party who gathers and investigates all the facts, and then reports to the judge as to his or her findings. And this is a little bit of a racket as well, because these are attorneys who have billable hours, and so it's in their best interest to drag it out as long as they can as well, because the longer the thing drags out, the more money they make. And it really seems counterproductive to me to have someone who's a court-appointed attorney but is being paid billable hours.
I thought in those cases that those were like flat fee. I thought, is it in Texas that it's that way, that's kind of a flat fee to, for a custody hearing or whatever, the court's only going to pay, $850 or whatever it is?
Depends on the court. Depends on the court.
Okay.
There are, it's the same kind of thing with psychologists. We've been involved in a case in Tarrant County where, this court-appointed psychologist is making half of his living from cases that he's appointed to by the courts.
Oh, brother.
And they are motivated to drag it out forever, because the more work they have to do, the more billable hours they get, and the more money they make. It's a complete racket, but I did ask my son's court-appointed attorney to come to Lubbock, tear my house apart, talk to all my friends, talk to teachers, talk to school board members, talk to all of my friends. I've got friends in law enforcement that have been around my children and I who have experience in spotting child abuse cases or child neglect. I had them contact this gentleman and say, "Listen, I've been involved in child abuse cases. This is not one of them. I asked for a thorough investigation. Please look into me, tear my life up, and you'll see I'm a great mom." And the guy refused.
Yeah, but you're a Republican. See, I think we may have found the key to this.
Could be. But, so are my parents. They're Republican as well.
Yeah, but they're New Mexico Republicans. There's a difference.
Oh, I see. So yes, but now, yes, you're right. Something recent has occurred. I mean, the final ruling from Judge Walker was that because I had to send my son for help, I'm unable to meet his needs, which sends a terrible message to parents who are simply trying to do the right thing for their kid and keep them from ruining their lives, that you could get that child ripped away from you. It's kind of like you're punished for trying to do the right thing.
And I think that is, as you and I have talked about your case in particular, I think that's one of the most distressing things about this. It's the reason. Well, hold on a second. I don't want to cough into the microphone. It's the single reason that, well, we have 5 kids, 5 watch pups, as we call them, and from the time they were young, when they're little and you're having to swat their hand, for doing something repeatedly or what, I was always nervous about Colonel Watchdog in public doing something like that because some do-gooder was going to have us arrested on the spot. And people are afraid to act in the best interest of their kids for fear of courts getting involved.
Correct. So, yes, here you have people who are actually beating the daylights out of the kids and not feeding them, and they're in squalor. And those people, they get to keep their children. And here I was trying to be a good mom and help my son, and I get punished, for trying to help. It was crazy. So then the next step in this is a few months went by, and a person that I know pointed out a blog on the Internet in which people had posted some negative comments regarding the program that my parents operate in New Mexico, where there was alleged child abuse type of behavior, and it ended up that I had quite a few students, former students and staff, then get in touch with me when I found this blog. I put my contact information on, and come to find out. The male students were having to pump sewer out onto the ground with no protective clothing. They were having to take showers. This because it wasn't being pumped professionally and hadn't been for at least 6 years that we know of. It was backing up into the shower, so these boys were having to take showers in their own feces, which is disgusting. So the EPA got involved, Child Services got involved. Subsequently, the kids were sent home. They're all back home now. One of them that I know for sure lives in Wichita Falls, Texas. He is supposed to be a senior this year, and he went back home to register for school, thinking he could pick up where he left off. Turns out there's inadequate education program, so he's like back in 10th grade, having to do some 10th grade classes. Right. So there was some education neglect. There's complaints that they got diplomas and they are not accepted by the U.S. military or by colleges. So kids had to spend money going to extra classes when they'd already got a high school diploma. There's kids that have alleged they got a diploma, but the last grade they completed was 6th grade work. So they've complained that there's inadequate food. They've had to eat rotten food or bug-infested foods or moldy foods. Were taken to the doctor and had some health complications as a result. So there's some serious child abuse concerns. Let
me ask this, because your son was not formally put into the program, is that the reason he was not returned to you, or does the order from the judge, no matter whether he was formally enrolled in the program or not, they were still going to get to keep control of him because of the judge's order?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Well, and not only that, she left communication up to the discretion of my parents, which they will not allow me to speak to him at all. I cannot talk to him on the phone. I haven't seen him since October 3rd of last year. I haven't. They completely cut me off from my son that I was trying to help. My son and his little brother has no ability to contact his brother, and we all had a very good relationship prior to all this. And so these people who have claimed to be Christians, who rebuild lives, who help others, have ripped my family apart. And the court system helped that happen. They facilitated a wrong here. And it is important that we vote for the right people. And interestingly enough, my dad's attorney is running for judge in Albuquerque. His name is David Standridge. He's running against Eliza Hatfield, who consistently upholds parental rights. She has a reputation of that.
Wow. Well, and so interestingly enough, programming note here, I have offered either the attorney or your parents equal time on the program here because they've called the station here for a couple of days implying that I shouldn't have you on and that there was maybe some injunction or something like that. And, they never sent anything that said anything of the sort. But I have extended an invitation to them to come, please be on the program and give their side of the story. I have yet to hear back from them, so that's all I can do is extend the invitation. So, Cindy, advice to anyone going forward? What would you advise people if they're having trouble with a kid and they want to get them help?
Well, first of all, there were some practices of keeping children, not only me from my son, but keeping the students there from communicating with their parents, in that phone calls were monitored and limited, and if negative things were said, they would hang up on them. And then there was issues too with like I said, with the school, and that parents had a difficult time getting access to what their children were learning. So I would say if you're in a situation where your child needs help and you're looking for a rehab-type facility to send them to, the first thing you want to ask is, can I walk in this facility at any time unannounced?
That's a good
and
point,
look around, make sure my child is safe, make sure my child's medical care is being, I want to look at their schoolwork, I want to see their progress, I want to be able to sit down and talk with them.
You still want to be involved in their life. You just need someone with more expertise in working through into some of these problems.
Correct. And yet you're still the parent.
Yeah.
My son is still my son.
Right.
He is my child. This is your child. And I'll tell you, when you get to this place, as a parent, you do feel kind of lost. Kind of like, why am I not able to get my kid on track here? And so you're reaching out for some help. You feel a little bit lost, and you have people who are supposed to be experts telling you, okay, this is how we get kids back on track. We do A, B, C, and D, and you just trust that. And you try not to interfere with what they're trying to do. But at the same time, as a parent, you have a moral and a legal obligation to ensure the safety of your child, to ensure the well-being of your child, even if you need assistance. And I think there's been a breakdown in the parent's mind, I know there was in mine, in that you're trusting these people to help you, not realizing that there could be abuse happening, and some of this abuse for years. You're trusting that there must be some oversight. And for my parents, I've been told by authorities that they've flown under the radar screen for 30 years because the state of New Mexico has licensing requirements if the census is a certain amount, and they always keep their census of students just below what is required for that state licensing, so that there would be oversight. There is a bill in Congress. It's in a committee at this point. It's H.R. 3126. It's in the Education Workforce Committee, and it has happened as a result of abuse at teen rehab facilities. In fact, Teen Challenge nationally has been one of the big, huge concerns because it's a nonprofit. They don't take government money, state or federal. And so that has led now, unfortunately, to where, because Teen Challenge won't police its own facilities, that now the government is stepping in saying, okay, if you're not going to do it, we're going to have to, which you hate that. But it gives jurisdiction to Health and Human Services to oversee any facility with 2 or more students, to make sure the kids are safe, make sure they're being cared for properly, make sure the education is up to par. And it would establish an 800 number for people to call in to complain, and a website where you can check out facilities and see what the complaints are, or if any have been launched. And as much as I hate too much government, unfortunately in this situation, because there's been a lack of accountability, there has to be someone has to take care of the kids. Someone has to protect children. And if parents are kind of limited or made to feel like you're inadequate and we need to do this, then somebody else needs to do it. But any parent who has a child in a rehab facility or is thinking of putting their child in ought to be able to walk into that place anytime unannounced, look at their schoolwork, see what they're doing, look at their curriculum.
So getting cut off from communication is probably the first sign that something's awry. All right, Tim, any final words of sage advice to parents or teens out there?
Well, I would just say what we said before. We got to get involved in these judicial elections. We do some, and we're looking for help for people in each county that will help us vet these candidates. So we're endorsing those on our PAC, and want to work with people so we can educate these judges and take out the bad ones.
All right, good work, you two, and keep fighting for us up there, even though you're up in Yankee land. I'm kidding. And of course, we'll have you back to have some follow up on how this stuff is going.
Thanks. All right, Jason. Thanks for your help.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, there you go, Tim Lambert and Cindy Ortiz. Quick break, and then we'll wrap it up right after this. That's it, folks. Join Dory Lynn at 6 a.m. in the morning for those oldies that you haven't heard in a while. And we're going to have a busy week next week, so you got to be prepared to take on the entire world. starting 5 p.m. on Watchdog Radio, starting next Monday right here on KWEL. News Talking More.
Locally owned and